Hello everyone. It's been a while since I last made a video on this channel, but I've been working hard to create a tool to make your colors look professional in Lightroom. To give a little background on what I have actually created, I will first go back to about 2 months ago when I was looking at some amazing photography by MP the Comeback Kid. Right in front of you is actually an image of MP the Comeback Kid, and his editing style in the autumn really inspired me to basically try out his editing style, basically find whatever he's doing and if I can apply that to my own photography. So you can see that this is an image by him, this is also an image, and this is also an image. And these are 3 examples of images that I really wanted to know how to basically create that editing style that he was going for. And basically the essence of this image is like it's really soft, but most of all the colors really stand out. So you have the autumn colors of the oranges and the blues that really stand out here. And those oranges carry over for this image as well. But when you basically start to look at it in detail, like what's actually causing these images to look good, I first of all wanted to look at the color of the shadows, because usually that gives out a pretty great mood of the entire picture. So I started analyzing the shadows, and this image is a great example. When you hover your mouse over in the corner in a black area, in the top right you can see the percentages of the luminance in the image, and I noticed the luminance actually had a color in it. And usually what you do with the blacks is you create a normal fade, and the normal fade is basically a shade of gray that and the shade of gray basically makes sure that the image isn't entirely black, and it creates like a smooth sort of feeling in the image. It's a bit weird to explain, but basically it just looks good. But you usually don't really get a color out of it. The only way to do that is to adjust the individual RGB of the curves, but you're kind of, it's a bit of hit and miss. You don't really know what you're doing with that, and you can't really get a specific hue for it. So that really got me thinking, isn't there a better way to recreate these amazing colors that MP the Comeback Kid has, and basically create a tool that allows me to get a specific hue for it and reproduce it on multiple images as well. So basically that's how I got to the idea of creating a simple tool. So right in front of you, you can see the tool I actually created. So you can see it's basically just a normal HSL slider you can find in Lightroom and Photoshop and every other photo editing program you can see. So you basically have your hue, you have your lightness, and you have your saturation. I did I called it a bit different. I called it a fade and I called it a tones. That's basically because it isn't actually a HSL slider. The values don't actually match up 100%, and that's because of the amount of fade and tones you want to have. You basically want it to go around a single point, and that makes sure the actual color you're getting, basically when you convert it, it isn't the exact color you see, but it's manipulating the colors to be around that point. That's why you really can't call it a HSL slider, but the principles are the same. So what you basically can do for your shadows, you can basically select, well, I want to have a hue of 233. You can basically drag a slide around, but you can also type it in. So we basically want to have 220, for example. We can have that. You can also drag the fader around, and you can also edit all of these points here, so you can have 20 in the reds. This is especially useful if you want to check other images of other people to see what kind of hues they're using, what kind of fade percentages and such. So it's a really useful way. And then on the bottom here, you also have the tool to basically use the exact opposite hue of your fades. So the exact opposite of 233 is 53. So you can use this opposite in your image in your split toning, for example, or also in your midtones. And you can unlink them, choose a different hue for these, and these will update all correspondingly. So how do we actually use this in Lightroom then? Well, first of all, I need to explain something about the fade. some people might not know what a fade actually is. So when you have this image is shot by me with a 1100D, currently use a 60, but this image is really good to showcase on what the fade actually does. So first of all, you want to click on every point here in your curves. It's basically just a basic thing to start out with. You can do some other stuff with it, but this is basically what I always start out with, and actually created a preset for it. Right here you can save presets, and this is basically really easy for me to just grab all of these 5 points. For a simple fade, you just grab the bottom one, you clip it here, then you get the midtones here, and you push it up. As simple as curve, and it has a fade here, so the blacks aren't exactly black. I usually drag the whites down just a little bit as well, to basically not have any issues while printing, because you can't have exactly 100% black and 100% white, so you just make them a little more in the middle, and it also creates a really soft image, as you can see here. Problem now though is that yes, you can use the split toning here to create some kind of shadows here. The problem with the split toning, however, is that it's sometimes quite difficult to get the fade right. So, for example, you can have this balance here, and you can basically tone out this balance exactly how you want it, and you're still not getting that smooth transition to where you actually want everything to be applied at a certain point in the curves. Same goes for the highlights. Yeah, you can have a nice shadows, but then you add the highlights and it's all basically wrong. So that's why using the curves is a much more precise way to do it. But many people don't know how to use the curves properly. So this tool really allows you to handle the curves more in a precise way and get the use that you want. So for this example, in this image, I will show you how to go about editing this. So as an example, I've got a hue of 223, I've got a fade of 9, and I've got a saturation of 40. This basically gives the following results. I'll also turn on the opposite here. This is what we're going to be working with. So basically when we go into Lightroom here, I'm going to open up 5 points for RGB, so it's also on the RGB, and I'm first going to leave this one alone. I'm going to go to the reds, and the reds was at 5.7% in the previous one. I'm going to move that up. The green was at 7.9%. It doesn't need to be exact, and the blue was at 13.4%. So basically, you can see the before and after. You can already see there's a nice smooth transition to the blue in the entire image. And this is much nicer than it was with the split toning. So now that we've got this, we can also add the midtones. So when you go back to the tool, you can see it's a bit yellow now. So you don't always need to have the opposite hue. You can just turn it off. What we're going to do is we're going to use a hue of 12, because it's more of the autumn colors. For the tones, we're going to have 75, because basically we're going to focus it around the 75 point. We're going to have a saturation of 10. For the higher up tones, we want to use a low saturation, because otherwise the gap will be too much, and that's exactly what I meant with the tones going apart too far. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the reds again. We're going to grab this point, and we're going to have this to 78. We're going to grab the greens. We're going to decrease this just a little bit to 74. And we're going to grab this one and going to decrease this to 73. So it does not a whole lot, but you can see the oranges it adds in the highlights, and it's much more subtle than when you do it just with the split toning alone. But here comes the real trick. You know basically the hues you've used for your curves, so you can also add these same hues to the split toning. So we had 223 for the shadows, and we had 12 for the highlights. So what we can then do is we can, let me reset the balance here. We can slowly add a little bit of the split toning here, and a bit of the highlights here as well. to have that on top of it. And we can also basically, if we're like, well, maybe we want a little bit more green in it, we can fine tune it with this slider as well. So this gives you a lot more control, and it will also make sure that the general fade is a lot more subtle. So let me reset this to 223. And basically I already edited this and we've spent a lot more time. This is basically the results you can get, and this is pretty much only the tone curve. When I turn the tone curve on and off, and you can see what the basic result is. Another couple examples are this image, where this is the before, and this here is the after. I really like this image as well, with the blues again. So this is the before, and this is the after. And also this image, this is one of my favorites. You can see this is the before and this is the after. You can see a lot more blues mixing in with the green, creating a nice color, and also the reds really popping in the midtones. And finally, this also, it doesn't just work for nature shots, it works for city shots as well. This is a photo I shot in Dublin, and you can see, well, the blacks are pretty rough, looks quite nice, but when you add the curves, it just looks a whole lot better. So apart from working with the fade, one thing you can also do, you can basically reverse engineer it. So when you go to the reference images I just showed you of MP the Comeback Kit, you can basically look at this image, or yeah, let's look at this image. We have 5.4, 6.7 and 10.8%. So if you want to know what kind of hue this is, and basically analyze what kind of hue MP the Comeback Kit and both the hue and the fade, what kind of what he's actually using in his images, we can basically input 5.4, 6.7 and 10.8. So 5.4, 6.7 and 10.8. We can see he uses a fade of about 8%, a saturation of 33 and a hue of 226. The saturation again isn't really important, but we know a hue of 226, so this is a starting point for us. You can also check the opposite hue of 46. I'm not confident he's using a 46 for the other stuff, but you basically get a starting point for where you can work off, and it isn't always needed to basically use this opposite hue you have here, but it basically gives you a general idea. I hope this tool will be useful for a lot of photographers out there. If you have any comments or suggestions, please let me know in the comments, or you can contact me directly via email or Instagram. Also make sure to check out MP the Comeback Kit's Instagram. This will be linked in the description, as this is where I got all of the inspiration from to make this video. See you in the next one.